Welcome to the Astro Cast with Astrologist Raquel Reyes, an added bonus to the Spiritual Phoenix podcast. You can take a personal deep dive with Raquel through her links in the show notes. I'm the humble host of the Spiritual Phoenix podcast, Ross Sesta. Please support the show by subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us excellent reviews wherever possible, engaging in our content on social media, shooting me an email, sending an audio message through the Anchor app, and donating through our links. This is a community podcast. I'm just the host. Let's start the show. All right, welcome everybody. We are joined by astrologist Raquel Reyes. Raquel, how are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. I'm super excited that you were able to take the time to do this. This is coming out actually before your interview will come out. So people will get to learn a lot more about you after this, but this is something we had talked about after this interview. I don't want to spoil the news. I'll kind of let you explain briefly who you are and what we're about to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me. This is my true pleasure and passion to talk with people about astrology. And the reason why is because astrology is essentially a tool in personal development, self-knowledge, self-exploration. And not only is it a tool that we can use as individuals, but it really is a tool that helps us practice empathy and understanding and finding that soul recognition in other humans. So one of my favorite parts of astrology to talk about are the lunar cycles that we have. In ancient astrology, they really revered the moon as like the most important part of the chart. Nowadays, there's a little more of a focus on the sun sign, but the moon sign is really where it's at because the moon represents our internal emotional self. It also represents our sense of security. So it's like what makes us feel safe. The moon is our moods. And if you're anything like me, I'm pretty moody. The moods shift. And the moon itself, it moves every 2.5 days. And it goes in a full lunar cycle once a month. So it makes sense that we're moody all the time because if the moon is controlling our internal emotional selves, then there you have it. So moon tracking for me is one of my favorite parts of the study. It's something that I will always do every single day, no matter what. I do it on vacation. I do it in other countries. It is just a huge part of the practice. And so I'm really excited to dive into this today.
Wow, that's a very beautiful explanation of everything. I'm really excited to hear everything else that you have for us to listen to as well.
Absolutely. So I want to just come right out of the gates and say, we're going to be talking about the full moon today. We are experiencing a full moon in Virgo. This is called the snow moon. And it's generally because back in the day, this would be the moon where the most snow was on the ground. And interestingly enough, if we look at certain parts of the country right now, that's pretty true. So it's definitely living up to its ancient name. And this moon is really important because it's going to be in Virgo and it's on the Virgo Pisces axis. I'm especially excited to talk about this with you because I'm a Virgo sun and you're a Pisces. So this moon with your energy and my energy in particular, it's going to be really hitting us in our feels.
Oh, wow.
If you have heavy Virgo placements or heavy Pisces placements, you're especially going to feel this, but everyone feels this on a collective level because astrology is where the planets are right now above our heads in the sky. So we use NASA's tracking. So even if you don't have your personal planets in either sign, we all feel this as a whole, which is another reason why it's so important. So when we have a full moon, this actually marks the end of a lunar cycle. And it starts with a new moon. So from full moon to full moon, the last full moon we had was 0 degrees Leo, and this one's going to be 0 degrees Virgo. So there's a huge reason why we have these 0-degree full moons right now, because that's not normally the case. In astrology, when moons are at 0 degrees or any planet is at 0 degrees, this is anaretic. This means that it brings a sense of critical awareness to whatever energy it's embodying. And what this essentially comes down to on a deeper level is that we need to be saying goodbye to old patterns. That's why these 0-degree moons are coming up and causing almost these like crisis-like feelings, because this is about reprogramming. there's a lot of restructuring, reprogramming that's happening in the collective right now. And these full moons are really kindly and generously providing the push that we need to make these things happen in our lives. And when we talk about a Virgo full moon, you know, we're all going to be taking on Virgo energy. So what that could look like is being of service, most importantly. It's also about analyzing who we are, who we want to be. So there's this steady earthbound practicality that we're all going to feel during this full moon. But remember that full moons are also a time to kind of cleanse and shed. And what we're doing is we're getting rid of residual energy so that we can welcome in the next new moon. So when we end a lunar cycle, it's such a great time to really go within and ask ourselves, what cycle within me is maybe ready to transmute into something different? Where can I clear space for new energy to come in? Because once we start the new lunar cycle, new energy does come in. And by the time we have the full moon, we are feeling pretty full. So I know that when the full moon happens for me, I kind of already have it on my mind, or it's already on the tip of my tongue, what I might need to be releasing in a way. Do you feel that at all personally?
I really do. And let's see how in tune I am with everything. What I really feel that I'm needing to release from my life right now is a lot of kind of self-doubt and a lot of restriction about kind of how I'm showing up for life so I can provide more for other people and for myself.
Well, you're totally in alignment, because back to this Virgo Pisces axis that I speak of. The Virgo Pisces axis is one of the most healing axis in the natal chart wheel. They're direct opposites from each other. So Virgo and Pisces, it tends to be very yin and yang, very symbiotic, where the Virgo has strength in analyzing and being practical and getting grounded. Pisces ushers in a different vibe. It's watery energy. It's more creative. It's more intuitive. It's more dreamy. So where the Virgo energy has a hard time like relaxing into the unknown, the Pisces can really bring that to Virgo and just be like, it's chill, calm down. When the Pisces energy gets too dreamy, too fantastical, the Virgo can kind of be like, hey, Pisces, come here. Let's get grounded really quick. That's not super realistic. Let's try this. So with the full moon on this axis, it's beautiful because it's really illuminating Virgo's strengths and also illuminating the capability of Pisces. Now, what's interesting about this is that it can bring up some insecurity where we might be asking ourselves, like, where do we feel like not good enough? Or where do we feel like we can't get the job done? And that's where we're going to be invited to be half Virgo and half Pisces and try to meet somewhere in the middle to exact what it is that we want, because Virgo's so analytical that it can be insecure. Analyzing things constantly, that creates worry. That can create a lot of rigidity for us. Especially, I want to say, if you're in the program, if you're in recovery, we can be very judgmental of ourselves. It's almost a part of the step work that we do analyze a lot. And so sometimes Virgo is exactly like this, where this full moon could be creating a need for people to do their own step work in a way. But you can take it too far. You can start feeling hurt. You can start feeling inadequate. And that's where you're really going to want to anchor in that Pisces, Neptune dreaminess, because it's, again, yin and yang. You have to have both. We can't be all light or all dark. We're all made up of both. So this axis is really healing because Pisces and Virgo, they're both generous. They both like to help. They both like to be of service. If you have a friend who's a Virgo or a friend who's a Pisces, you know that is someone you can rely on. So this moon is beautiful because it's going to activate that. But again, err on the side of caution when it comes to being too harsh on yourself, because Virgo can be perfectionist. And as we know, nothing's perfect, not in astrology, not in life. everything's flawed. We're all flawed. So that's going to be a fun thing to explore, I feel, for all of us.
Yeah, I really liked how you touched on kind of the softening of the edges of self-criticism and judgment, especially relative to the step work, because that's something I can really relate to. But I do feel that anybody who's doing inner work can go on this self-dictatorial rampage and destroy themselves. So it's nice to hear that this can kind of help people find a more centered approach where they can be aware but not destroy themselves. I like that.
Yeah. And another wonderful piece of advice that I actually thought about this all morning for this new moon in particular. So Virgo in the natal chart in astrology, Virgo is the ruler of the 6th house, which is the house, of course, of daily routines, activities, rituals, but it's also the house of service, being of service. And Virgo is, the earth god, goddess. So this also has to do with Mother Earth, plants, animals. So if on this full moon, if there's something that makes you feel like you don't want to do deep internal work, don't do it at all. Leave it. Who cares? There's no rush. There's so much time in the world to go inward, because the full moon can also bring intensity to our mood, because again, this is our internal self. So if you're feeling like this full moon is bringing on frenetic energy, and it does for a lot of people, step outside of yourself. I invite you to honor the 6th house matters that Virgo naturally rules, which is to be of service to others. So even if it's just like walking your neighbor's dog, or going and buying a plant and taking care of it, or any way that you can be of service, just think biology, humans, animals, anything outside of yourself. Even if you walk up and down your street and pick up some trash, that's going to really satisfy Virgo. And so as long as you're working with the flow of the moon, you really can't go wrong.
I think that's interesting too, because even if you don't directly work on kind of yourself, what I'm picking up on, if you do these things for other people, it's still going to actually help you regardless, because there's still the satisfaction, as we know, of service work. So that's kind of a beautiful thing too. Part of the work is helping other people. That'll help you in the long run. Very awesome.
Yeah, it's a really nice aspect. But when we are talking about this full moon, it's also really important for me to mention that all 3 earth signs, Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn, are being activated. They're being lit. The sky is being lit with earth energy. And there's just so much going on. So this is going to be a time to really get clear and to really get grounded. Now, there might be a little bit of a sense of crisis with this full moon, again, 0 degrees, that I want to touch on. And it's not to instill fear in any way, but it's because the best way to use astrology is in preparation and to use it to activate your own free will. So what we have going on is that Uranus is involved here. Now, Uranus is also in the last degree of Aries, because Uranus is getting ready to move into Taurus. Uranus is the planet of hidden genius, rebellion. It creates shakeup, sudden change, but it's also the great awakener. So Uranus being in Aries, it's kind of making all these last minute moves because it knows it's going into Taurus. So Uranus is like, this is my last full moon. I'm going to get in on this action. So yes, this is a Virgo full moon, but I want to touch on the other planets that are highly involved, because there are many. So with Uranus involved, this is going to be asking us to revolutionize our lives, which can feel like a tall order. But this is what Uranus wants. It wants to have us ask of ourselves and our lives in general. It's like, hey, you're a powerful creator. So where can you be creating? Where could you be shaking things up? If there's any construct that you are a part of, willing or non-willing, whether that's society or a relationship or a job, or just if you're feeling constricted in some type of construct, this full moon is going to give you the power and the wherewithal to shake it. And then it's going to like smash and break, and then you're going to feel like you're set free. And that's going to be great energy to like release and just be like, all right, I'm out of it. So, I don't want to freak anyone out, but this full moon is, we're predicting a lot of breakups, a lot of people quitting jobs, a lot of people, hey, I want to move, this is sudden change. And we have to remember that without change, we don't get to grow in that area. We can stagnate. I know I do it all the time. I feel when I'm stagnating. Sometimes if everything's like too calm, too steady, I'm like, should I create drama or something? Like, I need something. I need some energy. So really, this is permission to be fearless with this full moon. Don't be afraid to allow Uranus to shake shit up, because to be honest, it's probably going to do it anyway. And yeah.
I really like that. It's kind of this paradigm shift, and it's either consciously be a part of it or have it fall apart and kind of cling to it and get the rope burn, basically.
Yeah. And I always like to gently remind everyone, and even myself, that there's nothing in astrology or the cosmos or the planets, there's nothing that is a detriment. Anything that we feel energetically coming off the planets is for our greater good. It is for our soul's journey. It is to promote growth, healing, learning. There's always something. It's very karmic. And, this is also about society. So sometimes we have to remember when small changes occur with us that it does have a bigger impact than just our immediate friends or family. So what you're feeling could also be what tens of thousands of other people are feeling because of a cosmic shift. And so I like to feel solidarity in that, where sometimes we do feel so alone and so in ourselves, but that remember with astrology that you're never alone in terms of astrology. We're all feeling it. So
that's a really good way to look at it too. I've never really considered that. I like that.
Yeah, it's very collective with astrology. And with the Pisces Virgo axis, so Pisces we're also in like Pisces season. So Pisces season is all about intuition and the dream world and getting involved in ascension. So this full moon is essentially bringing the Virgo practicality into those big dreamy things that a lot of us are trying to do right now. I know after the eclipses, a lot of us had felt, at least me personally, maybe this is true for you, I could just feel like change and shifts. I could feel it like bottled up inside of me. And I've just been actively looking for outlets to change, to create, to just do something different. And I think that that's, for me, how I know that I am growing and ascending. And so with Pisces, this is ruled by the planet Neptune. It's all about fantasy and the dream world, and it's about illusions and creativity. The only thing to watch for once we get super deep into the Pisces waters, especially in recovery, is that we don't allow our rose-colored lenses to obstruct the reality of the situation, whatever that situation might be. Now, this full moon's going to be awesome because Virgo's probably not going to let you do too much of that. But, just getting deeper into Pisces season, like I said, Neptune in the natal chart is where we, as astrologers, tend to look for addiction or patterns in addiction. Neptune tends to rule drug and alcohol or substance abuse. So because Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, I just always like to let people know in recovery, just be aware and make sure that your vices might come knocking, whether it's mentally or physically, and just be prepared for that, and like they say, be ready to play the tape this Pisces season. Play the tape as many times as you need to, because Pisces season can be tricky. It's the slippery fish.
Yeah, that's good advice, especially maybe not even just for drugs and alcohol, but other kind of addictive behaviors too. I don't know if that impacts it, but it's always good to think of the consequences before you take the action.
Well, yeah, Neptune rules all addictions, but this can also be, even if people aren't in recovery, even if people are like, oh, I'm a normal drinker, you might just be hitting it a little hard during Pisces season. And that's because what Pisces does is it brings so much of our feelings to the surface, and that can be very overwhelming. But again, if harnessed correctly, that can create so much. We can dream up these beautiful things and ideas that maybe before we wouldn't really let ourselves go to that fantasy place. But with Pisces energy, we feel safer to do it because Pisces rules the unknown. It rules the 12th house. So when we get into 12th house matters, it can feel really scary. But again, it can also be a portal into things you never thought you would dream of. Suddenly they're there. So that's really exciting. And let's see what else. Another really fun aspect that we have going on with this full moon, Mercury in Pisces at 16 degrees is trining with Saturn in Capricorn in 16 degrees. So Saturn is an intense planet. He rules limitations and restrictions. Mercury is the planet of communication, and it governs how we express ourselves and how we relate with one another verbally, non-verbally, just anything under the umbrella of communication. That's Mercury. So when these two planets meet up at 16 degrees, what they're doing, their job on the spot of this full moon is they show up and they're like, how do we help? These two planets are helpers. Mercury is going to help us in communication. Saturn is going to help us in learning limits, boundaries, stuff like that, responsibility. And so it's going to be very supportive because this full moon, it is asking a lot of us. This full moon is asking us to heal, but it's also asking us to get grounded. And so with Mercury and Saturn showing up on set, essentially, they play a very important role in this moon. And they are also going to do a really great job. Again, I would like to say that they're helpers, but they're also on cleanup crew. So if you were having some communication breakdowns or areas of struggle, or if you've been struggling with boundaries lately, Mercury and Saturn coming together at 16 degrees trining, they're going to really help facilitate some structure for you.
That's always good to hear. Communication and boundaries are definitely things that are personally difficult for me. So it's nice to hear that there's some clarity in all of that, I guess.
Oh, definitely. And another big player in this full moon, and this is going to be where we're going to activate. So we've talked about Virgo, we've talked about now Capricorn. Now we're going to talk about Taurus. So Mars, which is the planet of action in Greek mythology, Mars is the god of war. But in astrology, this doesn't really mean war. Mars talks about our free will, our sense of desire, because without those things, there is no action really. So Mars in Taurus it's actually kind of funny because Mars is very fast moving, natural ruler of Aries, fire energy. When Mars goes into Taurus, it's like pump the brakes, slow down. We do not have to be rushing. We do not need things to be urgent in order to be successful. Mars in Taurus understands that there are fundamental building blocks that oftentimes just take time. If we want to create something long lasting, Mars in Taurus is going to be where we start to finally slow down and understand that most successful things do take time and effort and even resilience in some cases. So Mars in Taurus is also going to be interacting with this full moon in Virgo. And it's going to bring grounded practicality. If we are feeling, again, full moon intensity, Mars in Taurus is going to remind us that we don't have to take action all at the same time. So coming up with a game plan, writing down your plan of action, that is all stuff that's going to be super helpful and useful. But no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what your sign is, to have all three earth signs activated with one full moon, this is really powerful planetary action. And I also want to point out to everyone that this is the last full moon of 2019 before we start having retrogrades. So there is a sense of responsibility to ourselves and to the people in our lives to get very clear on, get good with yourself and get clear on what you're available for, what you're no longer available for, and understand that this is going to really set the tone for the rest of the year. And this is also going to be the biggest full moon of 2019. It's going to be so close to the earth. We're really going to see it. We're really going to feel it. And you're going to really want to soak this one in.
Oh, wow. There's so much awesome stuff in there. I'm like excited beyond belief. Real quick, I want to touch on 2 words that I came up with for this year for like my intention. One of them was like being rooted. So when you're talking about these 3 earth signs being activated and it being about grounding, I hear rooted in that. And it's like astrologically, I'm in tune with that as well. I just find that completely fascinating.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is such an earthy full moon. And again, because the moon represents emotions, sometimes when the full moon is in a water sign, we get very emotional. When the full moon is in an air sign, we start getting very intellectual. We start like coming up with all these ideas. When it's in a fire sign, we feel very activated. But when it's in an earth sign, that is when we get rooted and grounded. And that is when we can kind of stabilize. And a great little meditation that anyone can do this full moon is, if you have access to grass or outside, depending where you live, perfect. But if not, you can do this in your home. You can do this anywhere. All you would need to do is just sit in a space where your legs or whatever can be grounded into the earth. I like to lie down and do this, so it's like kind of full bodied. But what you essentially do is you just get calm, take a couple deep breaths, and you picture roots going from your body straight into the ground, through the bedrock, like all the way into the earth's core. And anything that you feel does not serve you, does not make you feel joy, does not bring you love, anything toxic, negative, anything that just doesn't belong to you anymore, you can just send it right down through those roots and into the earth and just get it out. And the thing about the earth is that the earth is so resilient. The earth can take all of your pain, all of your fears, all of your problems. And what the earth is going to do is actually take all that energy from you, out of you, and transmute it into something more divine. So not only are you doing yourself a favor when you get rooted and give it to the earth, but you're also creating synergy, energy for everybody else. It's like oxygen. It's like how plants work. And so this is just like a simple little meditation that anyone can do. And it's really powerful. Anytime I've done it, like if I have like my back hurts or something like that, or my knee, I feel like my pain's alleviated after I do that.
It sounds like a very powerful one. Once the weather kind of warms up a little bit here, I want to try that at some point. I really like it.
Yeah, it's great to do in actual nature, but you can do it. Like, I mean, I'm sitting on my couch right now and I could do it because the earth is underneath me. You know, it's always there. So I guess if you're sitting on a couch, you would just have like one more little layer to go through versus straight to the grass.
I like it.
Yeah. And then let's see. So I was actually looking at your chart in particular.
Uh-oh.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to tell you a couple things that I thought you would maybe find interesting about this full moon.
Yeah, go ahead. I'd be honored. Thank you.
Okay, great. You're so welcome. So this full moon for you, and to anyone listening, if you have access to your natal chart and you want to figure out where this full moon is going to affect you in your life, find 0 degrees Virgo in your natal chart. If you don't know how to do that and would like a professional to help you, please message me. I love doing this for people. But for you in particular, this is going to be hitting your 11th house of community impact and networking and friendship and socializing. And where this is very interesting for you is because on the opposite side of your wheel is your 5th house, and that's where your sun in Pisces is. And that's also where your Mercury, planet of communication, is. So with you, you have a lot, this full moon's it's highlighting, illuminating anything that you've been thinking or feeling or wanting to do in terms of creating community impact and things in humanity and things on a larger societal scale. Now, understand that when the full moon illuminates a part of your chart, again, 0 degrees, it could be bringing up a little bit of crisis. So you in particular could maybe be feeling, this full moon might bring on feelings of insecurity, where you could probably feel like maybe you're not doing enough, or you could be doing things different, or you're like maybe getting through to these people but not these people, and it's driving you crazy. And it's like that's Virgo. Virgo's going to start analyzing the hell out of your 11th house.
Oh no.
But it's good, because Virgo does pick up on blind spots. Virgo does overanalyze, and yes, it's to a fault. However, through that analyzing is when productivity starts to come about, because without really taking that hard look, maybe you wouldn't have orchestrated or initiated any change on your own. But the way for you to balance it based on your chart is then going to be the 5th house, which is the house of romance and creativity. And it's about being a kid at heart. That's the house of Leo. So for you, just balance out those insecurities by remembering what feels fun for you, what feels good for you. How can you be creative? And if you can balance these 2 houses, which of course you can, because everyone can, it's your birthright to do so, you're going to have so many blessings and so many cool things that this full moon is going to clear all the residual space out. And then all these new amazing things are going to start pouring in during the next lunar cycle. So really, it's just about doing a little bit of work. If you apply just a little bit of effort into what the moons have to offer, you have very, very big, beautiful outcomes.
I really like that. Those are all areas that I've actually been working on. And I was talking to somebody yesterday for an interview that's upcoming, and they kind of talked about how I talked badly about law of attraction. In the next breath, I kind of said that I wanted to be interacting with more people and kind of have this bigger sense of community. So it's interesting that astrologically it's kind of been answered already. Like, I find it so fascinating to see how intuitively I'm tapped into a lot of this stuff without ever studying astrology or anything like that.
I find it fascinating as well. But then again, you are a Pisces. And Pisces just tend to be intuitively connected. It's just, again, Pisces rules the 12th house. It's the house of the unknown. So anyone with heavy Pisces placements, especially sun or moon, I always just assume that that person is intuitive and or psychic.
Yeah, that I've definitely been told that I have some psychic capabilities as well. I'm still stepping into that. I have a question for you now.
Yeah, of course.
What, if I understand correctly from our interview, you had said that you kind of dabbled in some magic as well. Maybe dabbled wasn't your word. What kind of magic would be good for this type of full moon, potentially, or rituals?
Yes, thank you so much for asking. So I am very into burning rituals. My Mars in my natal chart, planet of action, is in Aries, fire sign. So it's kind of in my chart that, like, I like to set shit on fire. It's very powerful for me.
I can dig it.
And, you know, since getting sober, the things I light on fire, it's like contained now. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I'm like half joking. Mars and Aries at a lower vibration can totally lean into like vandalism and stuff like that. Like I used to just like be like a 16-year-old asshole and just like kick over trash cans and be like, yeah, punk rock. And like, it was silly. But anyway, the full moon is really a time to cleanse and release and clear space. So new moon is bring stuff in. That's when you'd focus on like law of attraction. So like the moon right now, if you were to look outside, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because that's what happens when you lead up to the full moon. And then when you start at the new moon, it goes all black and then gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when it's going to the new moon, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's very easy to decide on ritual work just by noticing how big or small the moon is. If you look outside and the moon is not there, it's a tiny little sliver, that might mean that you would then need to either be getting rid of stuff or maybe starting to bring stuff in. But if it's full, then you really want to take a look at what can go, because that's the next step. That's what the moon's going to do. And so I like burning rituals because I feel that it's a great way to just release. And for me, I like to make a list of all the things that I feel are no longer serving me, or things about my own personality that maybe I noticed during this previous lunar cycle that I had a lot of anxiety, or I was being a little crazy about how long it took people to text me back. Like petty little things that I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I want to bring that into the next lunar cycle. So I'm going to probably add that to the list. It could even be stuff like, I ate like shit this month, or I wasn't doing yoga, just lack of motivation. I mean, I say those things because those are all things that are going on my full moon list. And so it's anything that you don't want, you can get rid of it. Now, because this is a full moon in Virgo, if you live somewhere where it's weather permitting, you could also put all of these things into like a crystal, all of your worries, all of your doubts, and just bury it into the earth and give that crystal back to the earth. And, crystals, a little bit of a sidebar, but crystals don't belong to us anyway. They belong to the earth. Yeah, they're conduits of energy, but it's great to give your crystals back to the earth often and not have attachment to crystals because, they were mined from the earth and taken out of their natural habitat to begin with. And so, not to say that they're not useful in magical practices, but be mindful and be considerate and give them back. You can also give them back with things you want to give back to the earth, such as issues or things that don't serve you. So any type of cleansing ritual, I really, really love. I also do a ritual this is a funny one. So this has been passed down in my family for like generations and generations. My mom's side of the family is Mexican and Spanish. It's called a limpia. You can Google it. It's been around for a very long time. And essentially what it is you take an egg, so a raw egg, uncooked, and you would pick a prayer that you love, a prayer of choice. And as you're reciting this prayer, you'd take the egg, start at your crown chakra, and kind of move it over every single part of your body. So arms, legs, torso, literally every area of your body. And what you're doing is any negativity, all of your worries, all of your stress, it goes into the egg and takes it out of you. And after you do it, if you crack the egg open into like a bowl or a cup of water, you can also see some imagery in the egg that might speak to you about what's,
wow.
Yeah. So like if the egg takes on the shape of a human eyeball, for example, then maybe somebody was giving you like the evil eye, or maybe someone energetically kind of thought something about you and it's like sticking in your aura. So really think of this as a way to cleanse your whole energetic field. And after you do this, it's really important to flush this egg in water down the toilet or throw it against the tree. Don't put it in your trash. Don't let it stay. Like get rid of it. Like put it somewhere far.
Wow, I really like that. I've never heard of that before, and I really want to do that now.
It's amazing. It comes from my great grandma, and I've performed limpias for other people because a lot of my friends are like, I want it, but it's like weird and I'm not going to do it myself. So can you come over? And I'm like, yes, of course. So if you can find someone to help you do it, there's no like prereq. Anybody can do this. It's just some Latin mysticism that's been going on for a while. What type of rituals do you normally do, or do you normally like to do?
So for a while I was doing just like I'd have elements of all the signs. Like I'd have like a candle, I'd have incense to represent air, a little bit of water, and then like a stone. And I would write a list of intentions or things to release, kind of like you had mentioned, based upon the cycle. Currently, what I've been doing more so of, though, has been making sigils. Are you familiar with what a sigil is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been making sigils and doing this one method from that an author, Gordon White, talks about, which is creating these shoals of sigils, where you create this group of sigils that kind of are small steps to a larger goal. And I release them all at once, and I have one that's kind of like a ringer. to kind of guide the sigils into manifestation. I kind of do that now. It's super fun, and I like art, so it's kind of this artistic representation of it. And I might write a poem for the moon or like some different aspect. I don't have any set rituals that I do anymore because I really try to do what my sponsor talks about, which is like walking in prayer. So I try to like be mindful of this stuff all the time. So nothing is more important than any other day, really. But I still find benefit in honoring rituals. I just maybe don't have as much time as I would like to do so, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And so speaking of time, I know that a lot of people, for whatever reason, can't invest like the time of, opening a full circle and doing the whole entire ritual. One thing that I absolutely love that's very effective if you are someone who's busy and you don't have a lot of time is just get one white candle and work with that white candle. You can put flowers around it. You could put your crystals around it. You could even put like cinnamon. There's so many things like already in your home that likely you can use for ritual work, and anything sweet, honey. And what you can do with this white candle is use this candle as essentially, this is like your healing candle, because this full moon is about release and healing. And you can just light this candle, and all you really have to do is just meditate with it and just think about the changes that you would like to see take place in your life. And don't forget gratitude, obviously, because the more, the less, the less. It's like, if you're scared about money, the universe is going to be like, well, we're not bringing her money because she's scared. But if you're like, you want to make room for more abundance, you look at this white candle and you meditate with it, and you just say, I'm so grateful for all the money in my account. I'm so grateful for all the money coming in, and know that you're healing that part of yourself that is, wrapped up in poverty consciousness. And let this candle be healing for you, because that's the point of this new moon, is again getting clear and getting good with ourselves. And it's just one white candle, and you don't have to do too much. Just pay attention to it and give it your energy.
I really like that, and that's a very good way to frame it. You don't have to go through these elaborate rituals. Sometimes it's just this minimalist approach where you can set the intention, because for me, all the ritual is the framework and kind of the like marker in your memory of the intention that you're setting. So like having it be super simple and tangible and accessible is incredibly nice, and it's refreshing to hear that, I guess.
Yeah, I actually, this is years ago, but I had lived with a boyfriend who was really weird about, he was just weird about like all of my spirituality and like all this stuff that I do, which was a very funny sort of duplicity that we had living together. But I remember very specifically one day he had said to me, do you really think that you're going to light this candle and your life's going to change? And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Because if I have a reminder every day, whether it's a candle or a fucking cat or a shoe, who cares what it is? If there's something there every day, even just for 3 days, to remind me, to bring me back to my soul, to bring me back to source, to remind me what I want to do and get me excited about how I could do it, that's what ritual work is. It doesn't matter what the thing is, and who cares. If you believe, that is going to activate your desire, your free will. That is going to change your life.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. It's really interesting to talk to people that kind of poo-poo on a lot of this stuff, because so much of magic or any of these kind of practices, in my general experience, are based in frickin' common sense and are supported by psychology and all of this evidence that like there's a lot of reality to this. I think that this is just kind of a tangent, but I think that a lot of people get caught up in what they perceive magic or these things to be, rather than the reality of what it actually is. So they miss this whole deeper experience with how they can interact with the world overall.
Yeah. And, I hold a lot of full moon circles, new moon circles. I have like a little coven, and I've introduced spell work and magic to a lot of people. And in the years of doing this, I have to tell you, the only people that find magic doesn't work are the people who choose to not believe in it. For everyone who chooses to believe in it, everything works better than they ever could have even imagined.
I like how you pointed out, this is just like my own personal experience. I approached a lot of this stuff somewhat skeptical because of my past, and I didn't want to dive into the deep end with a lot of it. But I also want to point out, skeptical doesn't mean necessarily disbelieving in it. It means being open, allowing the experience to dictate itself, which a lot of people lose sight of that. And even approaching it from a skeptical point of view, I've had results with this stuff that have created not even belief, but like faith, trust, and like knowing that it works. So it's interesting. It really goes back to this Peter Pan thing of like, believe you can fly. And you have to have this belief to get off the ground with everything. But then once you have evidence, it becomes knowing, and you don't have to prove it to anybody. You don't have to do anything. It's your direct experience, and nobody can take that from you.
Yeah. And this is why I love, especially astrology and the cosmos and the moon and the sun and all of that, is because, you know, I feel that we are all so cosmic. I feel we're more than just like skin and blood and guts and these shells. I think that we're so much more. There's so much more going on. And so to be able to kind of connect and tap in, to me, that is like such a privilege, and it's so amazing. And yeah, I just find that I think everyone starts out a little skeptical. I did as well. But I'm a results person. And if you were to look at my natal chart, you would see that. I'm a moon in Capricorn. So I'm like, I need to see some evidence, you know? So anything that I've ever proposed to anybody else, astrology, magic, or otherwise, I've ran it through my own system first. And only when I saw my own results did I then feel happy and comfortable to share it with other people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You have to have a level of integrity and have direct experience in order to actually present it to people. At least I do, and you do as well, from what you're saying. And I think that is an area where maybe a lot of people miss out. But that's a whole different tangent. Is there anything else that you want to add to all of this? Like, I feel super excited about this whole new moon or full moon coming up.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about this full moon, because it is going to shift gears for us. It's going to shift gears here in the 3D real world with our relationships. But the most important relationship that this full moon is going to touch on is the relationship of one, which is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And not only is that going to be activated and probably improved upon if Virgo has anything to do with it, you know, here in the 3D, but it's also activating reprogramming in the 5D that we are going to feel here in the 3D. There's, you know, I'm sure a lot of people, you've heard them talk about, there's this new paradigm and there's a lot of shifts. This full moon is a part of that. And in a lot of different studies, astrology is right in alignment with all the other stuff going on. And so the full moon is just such a great time to focus on yourself. It is not selfish. It is okay. And when you focus on yourself, naturally, inherently, all of your other interactions and relationships are going to feel better. They're going to feel different. And this full moon is really just an opportunity to step into that and to really get clear with yourself and to heal.
I really like that. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to present all of this information. If people want to contact you, would you throw out your website and your Instagram and all this stuff so they can check it out?
Yes, absolutely. So to get in contact with me, you can go to my website, which is racrayla.com. And my Instagram handle is the same. It's racrayla. And I'm very accessible. I post lots of free content, and I also work with people one-on-one if you wanted to take a deep dive into your astrological natal chart.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll put links to all of that in the show notes. And in typical fashion, Raquel, if you'd like to, you can close the show in your own words.
Thank you so much. I just want to encourage everyone to rise up, break the old patterns, and get super fucking excited about 2019, about your life, about all the goodness and all the blessings and all of the abundance that is 120% on the way to you right now. It's divinely guided. The stars and the cosmos are in action. And just remember that every fucking prayer, every intention that you put out there is being heard.
Thanks for listening to the show, Phoenix family. Just a reminder, we are fan funded and you can contribute with the link in the show notes. Other ways to support the show include leaving excellent reviews wherever possible, subscribing to our YouTube channel, engaging with our content on social media, sending me an email, or reaching out via voice message through the Anchor app. Your support is greatly appreciated. Much love and synchronicity. Peace.